You know, every now and then a comment shows up that doesn't just ask a question, it reveals what a lot of people have been thinking. And this one caught my eye. This commenter is basically asking, how do we deal with tall fighters? Especially when kicks are involved, where the taller fighter typically has the advantage. But if you know the right concepts, height stops being a disadvantage. In fact, you can turn it into your biggest weapon. Today, I'm going to break down these concepts and I'll show you exactly how I do it in my own sparring. First, let's look at real pro fighters as inspiration. Mike Tyson showed how to bridge the distance with head movement coupled with his speed and explosivity. Saenchai showed how to frustrate taller opponents with rhythm and timing. He used great footwork and created angles to mess with his opponents and baited them, making them think he was doing one thing, but in reality was creating an opportunity for something else. And in modern MMA, I don't think anyone does it better than Alexander Volkanovski. He was great at using his jab to close the distance. He knew how to enter in and then pull back out when needed. For the most part, most of my tactics will be based off of Alexander Volkanovski. But stick to the end in my final sparring round, I try to mix it up and include tactics by Mike Tyson and Saenchai. And by the end of this video, something is going to click for you. You'll start seeing tall fighters differently. Now this round is just a warm-up round, and I'm only just working my boxing. And clearly my opponent isn't much taller than me. If anything, we're the same height. Oh, and if you're new to this channel, I'm the bald dude, in case you didn't know. And I'm just working technical sparring, technical boxing, working my jab, some combinations, and footwork. Now I get to work against a tall, athletic opponent who has a good 5 inches on me. He is a good combination fighter and he has a mean lead kick. So to negate his height, I often get in close, working the close range, dirty boxing, clinching when I can. Notice when I attack that lead leg, I try to slip around at the same time to avoid some of his punches. He's a southpaw, so I try to attack that lead leg a lot. Keep in mind, this is light sparring, so we're not trying to knock each other out, so we pull a lot of our punches. Here, I will use my punches to get in closer. He does a good job of trying to keep me away, but I keep trying to close the distance. Again, using that overhand right and a jab to the leg just to get him thinking, make him second guess. I use my footwork, backing in and out, and then coming right back in when I see the opportunity. We had a nice exchange there. We're going back and forth with our slips. So it was a very fun, productive round. So again, I attack that lead leg using my kicks. I like to follow this principle called closest weapon and closest target. So with a taller opponent, the lead leg is often my closest target, and I'm going to use my kicks as my closest tool to that target. And when I'm able to bridge the gap, I use my punches and clinch up if needed. Those will be my closest tools in that range. In a close range, the overhand is a great tool against a taller opponent because they don't really see it coming from above. So I stick with the same opponent because now I want to switch it up a little bit. He got to know me a little. I want to switch up my tactics. So I decide to work on my ability to fight backwards, so to speak. Now, I wouldn't recommend just fighting backwards or just backing up straight line. I'm always moving on an angle, but I'm trying to bait him and land counters off of his overcommitment to his forward movement. So I try to use my check hooks, but allows me to read a little bit of his offense. I can see some of his strikes coming a little bit, but it's very important if you're going to use this style to be able to move on an angle and not just back straight up. This tactic allowed me to catch a lot of kicks because it got me just out of range of his kick, but within range for me to catch them. And again, it allowed me to land quite a few of my check hooks or counter rights when he would overcommit forward. This is subtle baiting. I'm forcing him to do what I want him to do. Ah, crap, he used my tactic against me. Well done. This tells me he's adapted to my new tactic, so I switch it back up to the way I was fighting him before in that previous sparring session that we had the day before, where I work on my combos, my in and out fighting, using my punches to close the gap and work a little bit of that dirty boxing and clinch fighting. And within that, I adopt some back of that backwards fighting tactics and those check hooks. I want to keep him guessing. I mix it up. But generally, I'm following again that principle, closest weapon or closest target. Whatever the closest target I have to me, I hit it. And conversely, whatever is the closest danger, I try to avoid. And even when he's able to create distance like he did with that kick, I will find my opportunities to bridge the gap again. I will either use my footwork again, or I might even bait him like I did here by adopting a high guard. I want to bring him closer to me. He lands some nice combos in there, but I was well protected, and then he didn't see that overhand right coming. It's about knowing where you have the advantage at what distance. In this range, I feel like if I can close the gap, I have the advantage. But here, he does a good job of feinting, getting in close. I could have eaten a knee right there because of that feint. But I pull through and close the gap again. And as promised, I decided to try to mix it all up. I try to adopt a little Mike Tyson, a little Saenchai, but still a whole lot of Alexander Volkanovski. I try to incorporate a little bit of Mike Tyson's high guard when I want to crash in close. I will use a little more bounce in my step to adopt some of Saenchai's footwork and movement. And I will use the general tactics of Alexander Volkanovski, his in and out movement, use of his jab, use of the inside leg kicks, and again, that principle of closest weapon to closest target. We have a nice exchange there. I'm trying to use the quick counterattacks that Saenchai has. Here, I try to adopt Mike Tyson's head movement since we were in the boxing range. I go back to baiting him by backing up, catching his kick once again. And it's not always about defending every single thing, sometimes it's about minimizing the damage. And now it's time to add my own little flair. Here's a little sneaky move I like to do where I throw an inside kick, but I turn it into a push kick. This is where it gets fun. Now we're exchanging a little bit more. We're trying to read each other better. It becomes a tactical chess match, but at a higher intensity level. He's trying to use his reach at his advantage, but I'll fire back in the close range. We're both trying to employ our tactics based on what advantages we have. He has the height advantage, and I have the close range advantage. He adapts, he gets better in the clinch, lands a nice knee, but I fire right back with some dirty boxing. And that's a common theme you've probably seen today. Adapt. You gotta adapt to the situation. Even if something lands, goes outside of what you expected, you gotta fire back and adapt to it. You may have to switch your tactics. You may have to switch your position. And keep in mind, your opponent is reading your actions as well. They can adapt. It's about who can deploy their tactics better than the other. But what you probably noticed, the best way that I was able to handle this particular opponent was being able to be timely with each style I was incorporating. Again, not so much the exact style, but the tactics of the respective style. You know, using the infighting of Mike Tyson and using the movement and footwork that I learned from Saenchai and the ability to adapt to each situation like Volkanovski. Again, just trying to roll with some of the punches and then landing my counters and firing right back. Closing out the round with some nice exchanges. Now here's what I want you to take from this video. You don't need to copy Mike Tyson's head movement or Saenchai's rhythm or Volkanovski's exact movements, but you can copy the concepts behind them, the tactics, the methodology. We're talking about the entry, the angles, the feints, the leg attacks. And I can't stress this enough. Even if you're the smaller fighter or even if you're the taller fighter, use this principle: closest weapon to closest target, or CWCT. This is a great trigger, so to speak, to trigger in your mind how you should be reacting. You see a target, you hit it, but you hit it with whatever is the closest, most efficient weapon in your arsenal. Paired with good technique, you'll be in a great spot, no matter what size you are. Although I'm known for copying strategies, it's more about borrowing the method, not the moves. And suddenly, height stops being a problem. If you want me to break down any other styles or even your sparring or mimic another fighter's style in real fights, drop it in the comments. You ask, I deliver. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.